إنجليزية. إن أردتم الاستماع إليها باللغة العربية نرجو منكم استلام أحد أجهزة الترجمة الفورية وشكراً. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We have reached the final day of the 44th IAEE International Conference. While it might be a little bit sad to close the door on such a lovely and lively, stimulating platform, we must acknowledge the important engagements, the intellectual debates, and golden networking opportunities with like-minded peers from all over the world. This conference was practically COP 27.5, where a huge wave of ideas, stats, and inspiring visions came our way. Surely, much to reflect upon until we reconvene next time. I'm your MC again, hopefully not for the last time, Rana Al-Hanaya. Your safety matters to us, so kindly keep these simple directions in mind. We're not planning any drills, but should an incident occur, please note that the emergency exits are on both sides of the room. As a courtesy, please keep your phones to silent mode during the session. There will be time dedicated for questions towards the end of the panel, and it will be through a QR code that will be displayed on screen. That was it for our housekeeping, and now let us start. Before the plenary session, there's something exciting I'd like to announce. We are about to let you know who the winner of the Best Poster Award for the 44th International IAEE Conference is. This was given for a distinguished panel, through a distinguished panel of judges who evaluated the excellent posters presented over the week. And the determining factors are mainly three: for it to be visually engaging, and for it to be well rehearsed, well, the delivery matters a lot, as well as the quality of the economic content of the project. We invite our president, Fahad Alajlan, to present the winner with his award. Drum roll. Oh no. The winner is Usama Al-Anizi from King Saud University. Act surprised. Congratulations, Osama, on your trophy and your cash prize. Thank you very much. We shall start the session now. Our moderator for this session is the Vice President of Knowledge and Analysis at KAPSARC. He's responsible for the interactions with key stakeholders both locally and globally. When not at KAPSARC, you can find him presenting important research papers at conferences and engaging with roundtable discussions. Please put your hand together for Fahad Alturki. Dr. Fahad. The floor is yours.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, Rana, for the introduction. And thank you all for coming to this closing session. It's been a marathon of great ideas and great discussions under the theme of pathways to clean and stable and sustainable energy future. We had more than 10 plenary sessions, more than 60 concurrent and poster sessions. There was rich discussion that we will, in this closing panel, we will discuss the main takeaway, but we will also discuss the next steps for the international association as well as the regional associations. For that discussion, I would like to invite to the stage Dr. Majid Al-Moneef, the chairman of the Saudi Association for Energy Economics. Dr. Majid. Of course, none of my guests need introduction. They've been introduced before, and I'd like to describe this panel as the presidential panel. We have Gürkan Kumbaroğlu, the president of the Turkish Association for Energy Economics. Next, Jean-Michel Glachant, the president of the International Association for Energy Economics. John? And last but not least, Christophe, Bonnery, the president of the French Association for Energy Economics. Okay, we will divide this panel into two main sections. The first part, we will discuss the main takeaway, and then the second part, we will discuss the next steps for the International Association and the regional associations. Before we start, let me give the mic for all of our esteemed panelists to give an opening remark and highlight the one takeaway from the last 4 days that we've been together. I will start with you, Dr. Majid.
Thank you. Please first permit me, I have next to me Professor Gürkan from Turkey. I would like first to express our deep condolences, our heartfelt condolences to you and through you to the people of Turkey for the loss of lives caused by the horrible earthquake in Turkey and Syria. Our prayers are with the families of the victims in Turkey and Syria. May Almighty God rest them in peace and inspire their families patience and solace. Amen. As I said, the main takeaway is that I hope we were able to, or we succeeded in providing an opportunity for government officials and institutional leaders, academics, and corporate leaders to meet, exchange ideas, and address the timely and relevant issues facing the energy sector. So the first thing, we tried to do this with the help of our co-host, KAPSARC, and the IAEE. So we hope that we succeeded in doing just that. As we probably proceed, we might have so many other things to add, but those are the main, this is the main takeaway. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your remarks. I'm biased, but I think we did succeed on getting together. Professor Gürkan.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Majid, for your sympathy and kind words, and all other colleagues who have been approaching me regarding the incident in Turkey. It's a very sad story. With your prayers for the families and victims, we hope to overcome this difficult situation. So it's been a great conference in all respects. my key takeaway is actually Saudi Arabia's vision to become the leading country in decarbonization and setting an example for others to follow in terms of the sustainable energy revolution. So I remember when the Saudi Vision 2030 got introduced several years ago, and the strategic framework to reduce Saudi Arabia's dependence on oil, when this was announced. Now, this conference, to me, has been a showcase that all this, there is great progress and the willingness and determination in this direction towards Saudi Arabia's new vision. And the implications of this new vision, of this change, are not only national, they are regional as well as global, because we're talking about the world's largest petroleum exporter, who will become now exporter of green electricity, exporter of green and blue hydrogen. That's what we've been talking about in this conference. To me, this was a very important takeaway, the most important, to see this, that this is not a dream, it's a reality happening now, that Saudi Arabia takes this green energy transformation not as a threat, but as an opportunity to adapt and sustain its role in global energy markets.
Thank you. Jean-Michel?
Oh my God, Jean-Michel will be longer. I have 5 ordinary takeaways plus 1 outstanding. I will start with the outstanding. The outstanding takeaway is a change for long, maybe forever. It comes from the excellent work made by SAEE and KAPSARC under leadership of Majid and Fahad to link Middle East with the rest of the world on the basis of energy economics, energy economic principles, energy economic research. It's excellent to have respect and friendship, but if it is built on scientific work, it will last and have more consequences. I will, and I hope that most of us will, quit Riyadh, waiting for the next article, the next research report, the next policy option produced in Saudi Arabia, and we are all waiting for the regional MENA IAEE event in 2024. I will wait for the 5 others to not occupy the floor for more than 1 hour.
Thank you very much. We only have 1 hour. Christophe?
Okay, thank you, Jean-Michel, and thank you, Gürkan, for facilitating me, because I have very few other takeaways. No, I'm joking. There are plenty takeaways that we have potentially attended to during these 4 days. The one I would put at the top of that is the one who surprised me, which is the willingness of the kingdom to become a world leader in energy transition. I will bring that to my home country, in France and in Europe, by stating that the kingdom is really willing. It's not greenwashing. The kingdom is really willing to be a key player, not only in the kingdom, but also to export its knowledge to other countries, the knowledge he will acquire in managing the carbon cycle, the carbon economy, and the rest of the technologies. I could develop that for a long moment, but I think we should leave some time for the discussion.
Thank you for a very insightful takeaway. Now let's dig a little bit deeper into the days that passed since we got together here on Saturday. And maybe that will be an opportunity to elaborate on the 5 and the other points that you have here. On the second day, we have a very interesting discussion on energy access, security, investments, as well as trade. We also talked about mobilizing finance and other resources to enable a sustainable, reliable, and affordable energy transition. as well as to advanced technologies such as modern renewable technology, battery storage, CCUS, low carbon hydrogen, energy efficiency, and even electric vehicles. But if we look at the last 5 years, we see a great level of volatility and setback caused by first the pandemic, and then followed by the geopolitical situations, especially in the EU with the Russia and Ukraine war. Jean-Michel, if I start with you on this, how do you see this change in the post-pandemic world, and hopefully soon post-war episode? Is there a light at the end of the tunnel? And if there is a light at the end of the tunnel, is it an exit to a brighter sky, or a train coming the opposite direction?
Yeah. The challenges faced by the world did change. Energy security is come back at the forefront and has to be taken very seriously everywhere, because it is one key dimension of energy transition. Second, financing itself is become another key dimension of energy transition. While we have always to remember that hundreds of millions of humans still do not have access to modern energy. So energy security, financing of the future, access to modern energy, these three goals have to be fully taken on board, while we have to be frank, they were not at the forefront in 2015 at Paris Agreement stage.
If I may follow up on this, I mean, you highlighted a few parameters that everybody agrees with, but if we talked about investments on the first day. If we have to prioritize one investment that is very critical to do within the next 5 to 10 years, will trigger a more stable, reliable, and affordable energy transition, or at least stabilize some of the volatility, what would that be?
I will still take on board universal access to modern energy, because we cannot let sub-Saharan Africa away of the deals we are making. Second, we have to find something for countries like Bangladesh and Pakistan, having made a substantial effort to go to gas, to use less coal, and we cannot let this country into chaos and disruption. When these two conditions will be taken on board, I'm okay to have other conditions, but for me, these two at the world level are the most urgent ones.
Thank you. I can't agree more. Christophe, if I may touch on this within this context of disruption to the supply chain, and we heard on the first day as well as on the second day on the critical minerals and its importance for the energy transition. What we are seeing now with these disruptions in the supply chain, seeing a trend toward deglobalization. And we heard from His Royal Highness that probably there is a worse cartel than the current setup. But is there a new trade structure that is needed to ensure accessibility to some of the critical minerals for the energy transition?
Thank you, Fahad. What you are asking is for us to forget forecast the unforecastable. I was asked last year in the Tokyo concluding session to make some pronostics, and I was just observing that we were a few weeks after the Ukrainian war was started, and 1 year before that was impossible to imagine it. So how can we imagine what will be the future from now? I hope there won't be another war, but I cannot say if we will be in the post-war concept next year. Not impossible to say. But having said that, to answer your question, on the way to possibly facilitate the access to these critical materials, we have already existing tools for some commodities. I would say for oil, we have, you know what the role of OPEC is. Uranium as the Euratom system. We could create a public or international body which could look at possible development of or trade or exchange of lithium or of this kind of material. It's a little bit early, but this is something that could be examined for sure. No problem this is possible to do it. What should be also mentioned is the fact that we need to anticipate, and what is important for me is to remind that the war, the pandemic have not been any game changer or disruption. That was only acceleration of processes which was already started. And this is what we could see. This is a way for me to anticipate the future, is to consider the rationale on the long term and to see at what speed they will develop.
Is there a need for policy intervention or market mechanism would work best for a more efficient trade system for critical minerals?
Policy intervention. What we see is we can observe, it has been said during these 4 days, the growing role of the states and the government which are going into the market. And they are going there because they estimate that there are some market failure which they have to face. This is not always the case. We have seen some companies being purchased back by the government. This is the case in France of EDF. It is the case in Germany, where the major utility has become nationalized. This, for me, is the most easy. This is the easiest way to address the problem, because making a new market design or for electricity or for energies is something which is very difficult under the control of Jean-Michel, who is also seeing that in Europe. I think the state intervention is something which should intervene at the last when everything has failed.
Thank you, Dr. Majid. Just following up on the state intervention and the public intervention and the free market is taking a back seat. How do you see that affecting the energy market, the current energy market, in terms of both efficiency as well as risk?
Just one personal observation that I had from I was surprised, I don't want to say happily surprised, to have noticed in that first and second day that the current market situation and the crisis in Europe did not really dominate the discussion, nor did the prices, caps, and so on. The discussion focused on energy transitions, like the theme of the conference was longer term, which was very positive, that we should not be the prisoners of the moment. Some felt that the current crisis will change the whole energy landscape, but others looked at it as, like even the way I do, it's an aberration. The crisis, how long, it could last a year or so and so on, but it will be behind us. There is an energy transition underway, and we in the region and we all should be part of this transition, but also we should see to it is that the energy transition should be clean, the pathways should be clean, stable and sustainable. And the discussion had added another element, which, as a matter of fact, one of the participants said you should have added just and inclusive. I said, well, probably we missed that one. Pathways to a clean, stable, and just transitions. But the good thing is that we were not prisoners of the moment of what's going on and so on. True, the current crisis has changed the trajectory, the trade trajectory, trade flows. It also will be changing the investment flows. What I gathered from some of the plenaries, that the Middle East, which has provided the world with the biggest chunk of its energy needs, will also be needed in the during the transition period, to provide the world with hydrocarbons and be part of the energy transition to provide also the world with a clean energy, renewable energy, and hydrogen. So the region will be part of the transition. The transition. It will invest into hydrocarbons and will invest into the new economy.
Thank you, Dr. Majid. And I think if I may also add to the theme of the conference, affordability. So also that came a lot during the sessions. I want to shift now to the second day or the third day, which saw a strong focus on the energy transition in the context of the climate change. But we were seeing the discussion carrying over during that day, hand in hand with the economic development as well as energy, food, and water nexus. But the critical minerals also came in that day as one of the critical topics. Many panelists highlighted that all low-carbon technologies should be made available, which gives us tools that assess the adjustment and the transition in the energy sector. Professor Gürkan, if I start with you, everybody in this room agrees that we need to move to a low-carbon economy. Paris Agreement clarified this, but the scientific community proven this. But there is a disagreement on how the transition will be shaped and how fast. There is so much focus on 2050, some countries 2060, even within countries there are some differences. What about what's happening today? It's not the disagreement on how to get to the 50 and 60. Let's stop and see what's happening today. Is what's happening today consistent with our targets? Are we moving in the right direction? What is needed to be done to move us back to the right direction?
See, you mentioned the Paris Agreement. So when we go back to the INDC submissions, this was like the first INDC submission 7 years ago. 7 years have passed. So what happens today actually now is a good thing to compare with the initial submissions to see are we on the right track. And this needs to be made country by country, case by case. Now, as a key takeaway, I said that I have a very positive outcome regarding Saudi Arabia from this conference. I see it's on the right track. But I don't know other countries. So their INDC submissions, there are nationally determined commitments. Are these on the right track? So everybody has to look for his, her own country. If that is the case, evaluate how realistic those INDCs were and if the track is right. But from the IAEE conferences at least, not only this one, all conferences, I see that globally we are on the right track. All these discussions show that we all are moving towards decarbonization.
And there was during that day also a discussion on the need for economic development in light of the energy transition. Do you think this is doable to maintain economic development as well as move forward on the energy transition?
Of course.
Or are they contradicting targets?
Yes, but that's what you said with adding affordability, actually. This is nothing but sustainability. You see, sustainability has 3 pillars. One is environment, but then on the other hand, you have social and economic. Those 3 pillars have to be hand in hand, and sustainability lies at the intersection of all these 3 pillars. And I don't see them as conflicting, but they can go hand in hand. This is like multi-objective decision making. You have several objectives which need to be aligned. You don't have a global optimum, but you have a Pareto efficient solution at the end where no one can be made better off without making any other worse off.
Okay. Well, thank you. Let's hope that's what happens. And I will go back to you, Majid, and then on some macro questions related to the development side. I mean, energy transition, what does energy transition means for the developing countries? Especially in the context of the current macroeconomic picture with rising inflation, and for many of the developing countries, there is limited access to the financial and capital market.
Okay, if I may say something about the energy transition. There has always been a debate whether it's going to be a smooth transition or a bumpy transition. What we're noticing now, it is bumpy. This is one of the bumps that we have. So a transition will be, but it will not be too smooth. There will be crises, there will be bumps on the way. But there will be a transition, and all countries of the world will be part of it. For, say, energy produced for hydrocarbon producers like Saudi Arabia, like the Middle East. As His Royal Highness said, we will be the last man standing. We have the lowest cost, the cleanest production, the lowest emission in the extraction process, the lowest methane emissions, and so on. So we will be in the hydrocarbons market so long there is a demand for the hydrocarbon markets. So we have a role to play, and we will continue to play this role if it needed investment and so on. But the transition provide for the hydrocarbon producers also the opportunity to make of the oil and gas or to use their comparative advantage as producers of oil and gas into producers, manufacturers of any, of all the industries and the uses that could be used from oil and gas. And that's what the whole concept of circular carbon economy is all about, is to utilize the whole value chain from oil and gas. But at the same time, to be prepared, say, diversify your energy resources by developing hydrogen and renewables, also investing in efficiency. And the session on, I think, technology on efficiency was of particular interest to me, because at the end of the day, you are actually investing in efficiency, and also investment in human resources. Now, most of the regions, if you look at the wealth components, their wealth components, it's mostly natural resource component, and then human capital and produced capital. But down the road, we have to change that, the percentage or the shares. The share of human capital, of a produced capital, should be more than the share of the natural capital in our overall wealth components.
Thank you. Jean-Michel, you want to add something? I see you. No.
It is not the first
issue
time.
of inflation.
It's not the first time humans are facing an energy transition. My grandmother had no heating with external temperature -5 Celsius. Myself, we had no heating in the bedroom till I was 15 years old. And the first time I saw a young adult, 30 years old, buying a new car was my brother. And we did all of this. And now we have it. So in Europe, we are only seeing changing one type of fuel for another type of fuel. But for the most of humanity, the question is energy transition type 1, to get access to energy, to have heating if used full or cooling, and to have mobility. And this is not yet guaranteed to most of the humans. So this is task number 1. Task number 2, it won't come from the European. We are 8% of greenhouse gas emissions. The burden will be on the other humans. How will they do? When will they do? An Indian being seated at the place of Majid yesterday morning told society has to be involved. Society can do differently than top-down technologies or even capital investment. We may think the way we use cities, we may think the way we design transportations, but this is open to, let's say, the non-European countries to look at it, to invent it, and to do the way they are happy to build. And it's not only Middle East. My school has very friendly relations with India, and most of what the Saudis are saying, Indians are saying also. They are thinking the same. So a big part of humanity is thinking this way.
Okay, thank you. We'll shift now to our focus that took place yesterday, or the day number 4, where we shifted the focus to the demand side. We looked at transportation and mobility. What is the role of technology in reducing emissions, and what is the policy and regulatory environment that is needed to move transportation to a low-carbon future. We also discussed what's happening in the power sector and how it's transitioning toward decarbonization. And last but not least, we had the panel on energy efficiency and the role it's playing on the pathway toward sustainability. Let me start with you, Christophe, on this. If the electrification of the transportation sector goes at the rate that we're hoping it will go to decarbonize the sector, do you think that the power sector is able to keep up with such expectations?
Thank you for your question. I'm very comfortable with it because it happened that I was a prospective director in a major power distribution company which was wondering about this kind of question. If I can give the example of, to put some data, the example of a state like France, with 70 million inhabitants, we expect to have 35 million electric cars in 2050. This amount of cars, 35 millions, will generate an extra demand of electricity generated of 5% only. In 25 years, we have enough time to increase by 5% the capacity of generation. The main question is a peak load, of course. If all these technologies are connected at the same time, this could double the maximum peak observed as of today. So the answer will rely on the management of loading with the smart meters, with all these technologies. And so there are solutions. It's not easy, but this is an issue which has been already assessed and which apparently seems to be feasible. Then you have the question of acceptability and of feasibility for the household, but this is another question which is regarding the subsidies or the support which could be made to them.
Let's hope so. Thank you. Gürkan, I want to come back to you on the issue of energy efficiency as one of the pillars of decarbonization. Yesterday we heard the interaction between efficiency and subsidy. Do you see a new policy design for subsidy being the answer?
Yes, I mean energy conservation, demand side measures, efficiency are typically the low-hanging fruits. So then this should be on the priority in this transition, in this decarbonization, in terms of investment. So what's the business case for this, or what subsidies are needed, or what awareness needs to be created to get these measures implemented? Because these are usually and mostly no-regret policy where you also gain economically with energy efficiency measures. Therefore, I think there is a good argument, good material for policy makers. Although I don't believe in policy intervention in general. I think markets should work. Markets should be transparent, and market architecture is important. Regulatory design is important. But in this case, energy efficiency, there is definitely, in my opinion, a role for policymakers to play.
I want to stay with you, Gürkan, on the MENA region. We heard today the reason for the diversifying the economy, sources of energy, both create resilience for the region, and also many countries see it here as the pathway for a sustainable future with low carbon. In your view, what kind of economic diversification pathways are possible for the region?
What kind of?
Economic diversification pathways.
Economic justification.
Diversification.
Diversification. Yes.
That will facilitate energy transitions.
Yes, to facilitate. So you mentioned the keyword resilience, which is, I think, very important, and even in this period, like thinking of the unthinkable and being prepared. In these, for example, we also have nuclear, which was discussed also in this conference a lot, one of the technologies, but then more into the direction towards SMRs, small modular reactors, more distributed generation, to cover baseload when we have also a much higher diffusion of renewable energy technologies with their intermittent generation that we have. So the economics and the business case that needs to work, and this goes hand in hand with the financial markets then, because we need real investments, not financial investments, and the interest rates then play a key role, as was also one key issue in the sessions that we have discussed here.
Okay, thank you. We have about 15 minutes, so I want to shift to since we have 4 presidents of the associations, the international, the Turkish, the French, the Saudi. Thought I want to shift a little bit to the organizations of the conference, as well as the role of the associations. And I want to start with you, Jean-Michel, on this event. By my observation and the feedback that we received so far, is well organized and so on. There have been so many sessions that took place, more than, I think, 60 concurrent plus poster sessions. There are nearly 300 papers that are presented. The question is, what's next? How can we make sure that there is a continuity between international conference and to the next? And 2, how can we increase the impact of the conference? What's going to happen to the paper, the good papers that have been presented? Some students traveled overseas to come and present them. Is there any plan to utilize that knowledge and that production?
Oh, many, many questions. The first answer is the following. To have a real impact at the world level in energy economics thinking, energy economics policy making, is to have a strong research capability from the organizers. And it has been a success here because of KAPSARC, because of SAEE. Because you have been strong since many years into thinking, producing, you can have a strong conference and then be respected by the other regions, and then there is a challenge for the other regions to be at your level. I will do a step ahead, even if it is unpopular. Asia and Oceania, Eurasia, Africa, they have to scratch their head and to think how to redo what MENA did, how to do the same or something similar. Because for the moment, it's not granted that it will be done in the other regions. But soft competition among researchers might produce surprise. The second one is interesting because it is in the future. We, at IAEE, we used to use strongly powerful publication tools. Best example, Energy Journal. We produce world top-level articles. No, we do not produce, we publish. Okay, but how many a year? 100? So what do we do with the other articles? We do not know. We have to think better. We have to work on it. One possible way is webinars. Other possible way is what we have Energy Forum. We may create other ways also. We may create channels permitting to research to be more easily accessible and used at the world level. For the moment, we are not good at this. And the rest is for my colleagues.
Okay, thank you. Christophe, you want to add something?
Yes, I was the last president before the energy crisis. So that was, if I may say, just after Gürkan and some other in the room. So that was at the moment where we had a geographical expansion, like the Roman Empire, quite as large as possible. And it has been interrupted by the pandemic. And at the moment, we were wondering if it would restart at the same pace and if we could recover. And I think, seeing the conference of today and the one in Tokyo just before, there is no doubt we will recover quickly our efficiency. And what is the target of being displayed everywhere in the world is to spread energy economics all over the world. This is the mission of the association, and KAPSARC is contributing to that. But if I may give some recommendation to support this dynamic, one of them is to continue how you have already made. Continue to invest in high-level research, in excellent staffing, and this is the first recommendation I could do. The second could be to invite even more top-level speakers from, let's dream to a Nobel Prize, or why not, but just an idea. And the last point I would like to suggest is to consider the interdisciplinarity. Not leave the economists alone. Please join them with philosophers, people in ethics, people doing some technical sciences. Interdisciplinarity is something very important to examine the feasibility, also in case of social sciences, for instance. This is what I could propose.
Okay, thanks. Majid, as a chair of the steering committee for this conference, for the organizing steering committee, which I think is well organized, if you were to organize the event again, what would you change, if any? What would you advise the next presidency or the next organizers to focus on or to avoid?
Okay, that's the toughest one. But let me start. I was seated there, and Adam Szymanski came to me. He said, I want you to stand up and look back. And then when I stood up and looked, and it was a full house. So this is one of the first advice is try to get a full house in the final session.
Yes.
No one wants to miss the presidential panel.
So thank you all for making it. This is at least one sign of the success of the conference. Thank you all for coming. And since I am here, I am from SAEE, I have to make a commercial. You're all invited to be members of the SAEE. We welcome you as membership. We've got more than 100 plus members, and we plan to have 3 times or 4 times the number of membership. So you are welcome to apply for membership to associations. I want also, it will be hard to get what we have done right and what we've done wrong. But what we will do is that we will send a post-conference survey to all the participants. And in that survey, you tell us what we did right and what we did wrong. So please try to be frank. If there is something you didn't like, say I didn't like this. You know, the food was terrible, and so on. There is something that we haven't done, actually. It's God's wish. We usually pray for this. We had a good weather. So the weather helped us going around, having nice lunch outside, and so on. So the first thing, we'll be sending the survey, and please try to be frank and give us your feedback. I'm not going to say what we did right or wrong. I'm sure Fahad and I will be sitting with the team that had worked, and they will pinpoint to us. They probably had seen something that we hadn't seen. So we will do our job trying to evaluate and have self-criticism, self-appreciation, or something of what we've done. Final, to say another announcement besides the membership of the IAEE, but this is for the participants. Number one, we had a meeting with the IAEE and the other stakeholders. the region, MENA region, will, inshallah, join the regional North American, European, and Latin American Energy Economics Conference in association with the IAEE. So an annual Middle Eastern conference will be Middle East Energy Economics Conference will be held in the region, dealing with the issues of the region. This is heartening to us. We look forward to it. And I'm happy to announce and thank KAPSARC, who graciously offered to host the next Middle East MENA Energy Economics in the Middle East next year. But this will be an annual undertaking. The first to host it will be KAPSARC. So thanks to KAPSARC for graciously offering to host the first MENA Energy Economics Conference next year. The other announcement is that, or the other message to the authors of the papers and the abstracts that have been accepted or presented here, either in the concurrent sessions or in the posters. We will coordinate to have a special issue of the Energy Journal to be published during this year. So if you are interested in having your paper to be published in the Energy Journal, which is the most prestigious energy journal worldwide, please send your paper to be considered for publication in that journal. So this is the second announcement to the presenters of the abstracts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I want to touch on one point, which was the weather. And the weather was very complicated when we were planning the event here. We were having plan and contingency plan and contingency plan. And in that regard, I would like to thank our colleagues in KAPSARC, facility management, public relations, who work behind the scene to make it go smoothly as possible with different plans that was conducted with nobody even noticing what's happening. Thank you very much.
Fahad, forget, I think they had also plan B, but we did not resort to plan B.
Yeah, we have different plans. We were debating cold weather, hot weather, sandstorms, and rains. So these are the scenarios that we estimated. Gürkan, you're next to host the international conference in Istanbul next year. Can you give us a glimpse of the planning?
That's right, 25 to 28 June next year. So I think what is most important is to have these conferences not as standalone events, but have the connection, have the continuity. And in that respect, I'm very happy that we have colleagues from Saudi Arabia, both you, Majid, Fahad, Alajlan, and others in the planning, in the program committee. Actually, the program committee, we have 34 members from 23 countries. And we had a nice planning meeting here where we also put in lessons learned session at the very beginning of the conference. So lessons learned from this conference, conveying over to the Istanbul conference and continuing from there. I hope this will continue, we can continue on a sustained basis at international conferences, So to connect our conferences, the regional ones as well, and I'm very happy to hear that now this Middle Eastern MENA conference series starts here in KAPSARC. It's a great enrichment both for IAEE and for the region. And I hope this synergy will bring on great improvement for all involved parties, be it academia, be it policymakers, be it business. Now, for Istanbul next year, a glimpse, we're going to have 2 pre-conference workshops. One on life cycle analysis, and the other one on energy access and security. And we may have a summer school. We will be having the conference at the Boğaziçi University campus, a beautiful campus, very centrally located in Istanbul. The title of the conference is Energy Sustainability, Security, Efficiency, and Accessibility in a Time of Transition. And we have a very short video. I'd like to show the video, which you can also access on the conference website. It's all right on the homepage. Can we have the video, please? We had 2 international conferences in Turkey, one in Istanbul, one in Antalya, and we are looking forward to welcoming you for the 3rd conference, international conference in Turkey next year.
Thank you. There you have it. The conference in 2024 in Istanbul. Now, please join me in thanking our panelists for a great insight into the last 4 days. Thank you very much. And now this wouldn't be a complete presidential panel without our president, Fahad Alajlan. So I would like to invite Fahad Alajlan, the president of KAPSARC, to give the closing remarks. Fahad?
Thank you, Dr. Fahad. Thank you to all the panelists for summing up the last 4 days. It's been wonderful having all of you. I just wanted to build on a couple of comments, which is that IAEA conference should build on each other. I think we shouldn't take them as a standalone event. The learning that we get from one should continue to help in building. And so that's what the hope is for the Istanbul conference. is that we build on what we learned back in Tokyo last year, but also in Riyadh this year. And I'll take a moment just maybe to recapture the lessons learned from Tokyo, because I wanted to make sure that we reflect on them, almost a year from the Tokyo conference. The 7 takeaways, and these were supplied by our colleagues and friends in IEJ, so thanks to them, is that the first, world energy crisis and the risk of diversion from 1.5 degree path was clear. The second was the continued importance of natural gas and LNG and the need for investment and finance. The high hopes for hydrogen, but also the challenges that remain, including market, scale, transportation, and infrastructure, and the importance of critical minerals and materials, circularity and the supply chain, and the need to address intermittency of renewable energies, dispatchable power, and market design. Also the growing and critical role and importance of nuclear energy, and finally, ensuring energy access and growth for emerging and developing countries. So this is what we learned back in Tokyo and the key takeaways. I've seen a lot of the themes and common takeaways here, but I feel that we continued and built on them. And I'll share, the presidents here on panels shared their key takeaways. I'll share my key takeaways from the Riyadh conference over the last few days. The first, energy security is becoming more important, and that's not only oil and gas, but also supply chain and critical minerals and rare earth metals. We need resiliency more than ever. The energy crisis has subsided, but have not ended. We need to be prepared for more volatility, and geopolitics and conflicts will increase, and that risk will continue. Second, we're not doing enough on climate change. We're going for suboptimal solution in all sectors. Clean energy and renewable is important, but it's not enough. And we need to, more than that, to get to net zero. And hydrocarbons will be part of the energy mix, and we need to renew our focus on decarbonization. The next point is that solving climate change should not come at the expense of economic growth and lifting people out of poverty, as Jean-Michel mentioned. At least that's the viewpoint from the developing world. Balance is important and a key word. On the transportation sector, I was completely surprised by the statistics that Dr. Amr mentioned. 91% of energy in the transportation sector continue to come from oil, and that's only 3% lower than the 1970s. So in almost 4 decades, we made very little progress. We have a long way to go, and we tend to focus on cars and EVs. But as we heard on that panel, transportation starts with walking. So we need to think more about buses, public transportation, e-scooters, two-wheelers. And we need to think that this is not only a technology issue. I mean, we need to think about serious redesigns of our cities, how we work, and how we live. For power and electricity market, which is what we think is one of the near-term objectives, the possible objectives of decarbonization, there is significant progress, yet challenges remain. The cost also, as we heard from His Royal Highness on the first day, might not always go down as we always assumed. And we heard about the role of nuclear and how it can impact the future, not only as a source of base load and emission-free source, but also as we approach different business model and small modular reactors. And yesterday we discussed efficiency, which, as Terezawa-san mentioned, might not be sexy, but is one of the critical levers that we have. We don't pay as much attention to efficiency. There is no cutting ribbons, there are no projects that you can picture, but it remains important. And the statistics that we heard, in a time of crisis, Japan, a culture that respects tradition and common destiny, only managed 2% energy saving per year in a time of crisis. To get to net zero, at least in some of the scenarios, we need to achieve 4%. We're definitely falling short. But we also heard about the 3 pillars of energy efficiency, and we need to keep those in mind. Laws and regulation. Second is advocacy and awareness. And finally, the price incentive. We should not blunt the price mechanism. And my final takeaway, seventh key takeaway, I like to continue with 7, the magical number 7, is that we're not investing enough in energy. This includes oil and gas, clean energy, renewable, hydrogen. But also the opposite is true. Investment in energy is not enough. We need to invest in other things. We need to invest in business models, in our thinking, and most importantly, in people. And definitely there we're falling short. We heard that during the discussion around diversification, the need for capacity building. And yes, we're the International Association of Energy Economics, but we need to focus on people. And so we need to invest in people. So these were my key takeaways. I hope you found them useful. And I hope, we continue the discussion as we leave Riyadh. I would like to go back maybe to the first day and my opening remarks. And that brings me to a discussion that I had with Dave Williams back in September. And I had similar discussion with Jean-Michel, with Adam, with Dr. Majid. And I think the question is, how do you define success of the conference? And I thought about it and I continue to think about it. And I said that I had 4 objectives. So this is how I define success. The first, and it's not something that's actually related to the conference, that I would hope that people would learn more about the new Saudi Arabia, that they would see Saudi Arabia and how it is transforming. Because I've lived here all of my life, and I'm barely able to keep up with the change. The pace of transformation is exhilarating. And I hope that people, come back and leave Riyadh with this message, that not everything is going right. I don't think any place got it all right, but that things are being transformed here in Riyadh. The second, I hope that people would learn about KAPSARC, what we're doing here at KAPSARC. And that this is, yes, we're based in Riyadh, but we have a global focus. And we would like to continue working with other and collaborating with other. We have challenging questions. And for us to provide the solutions, we need to work together. The third was about networking. And I hope that, in our coffee breaks, in our lunch breaks, during the poster session, and after key panels, that we had the opportunity to network. And Adam was telling me yesterday that, one of our young colleagues here in KAPSARC, who has been here for 3 years, so he joined roughly during COVID, I told him that he met more people in his field in the last 3 days than in the last 3 years. So that makes me very hopeful. And finally, the key objective, the 4th key objective, was that people had fun. And so I hope that over the last few days, especially that cultural evening that we saw, a lot of talented people, I hope you had fun. I hope you enjoyed, being here with us for the last few days. And as we conclude, I think this is the time to thank people. And so first, I would like to thank all of you here. Thank you for attending and making this conference a success. Thank you to all the speakers. Thank you to all those who have submitted their abstracts and presented their papers and posters. There are more than 300 of you, so thank you very much for coming here and presenting and sharing your knowledge with us. I would like to also thank the International Association for Energy Economics for their support and selecting KAPSARC in Saudi Arabia for this year's conference. And I would like to thank also the Saudi Association for Energy Economics for co-hosting this event with us. And I would like to thank our sponsors for their generosity in making this program and this conference possible. In addition, I would like to thank Saudi Aramco for organizing the field trip to Sheibah tomorrow. I'm very confident for those of you who are going that you will have a wonderful time, weather permitting. So enjoy it there. Make sure that you clean the lens of your camera. It's going to be fantastic. Take a lot of pictures and post them, please. Finally, I would like to thank my KAPSARC teams. I would like to They have put in countless hours making us, at least at KAPSARC management, look good, even though we didn't do anything. We just kept preparing, opening statements and closing remarks, but they're the real heroes that made this conference a success. I would like to also thank our contractors, our volunteers, those who really did all of this. And I don't like to thank individual person because I think it's always a team effort, but I would be amiss not to thank one individual. I would like to thank His Royal Highness, Prince Abdulaziz bin Salman, the Chairman of the Board of Trustees of KAPSARC. Without his support and vision for KAPSARC, this would not have been possible. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here in Riyadh. I hope you had an enjoyable time, and I hope to see you very, very soon back in Riyadh. Thank you.
Good.